Well, in the perception, in the perception part, okay, last time in the nervous system we talked about this. The outside physical stimulus will move in through your receptor, and from your receptor, sensory neuron send information in, will go to your integrating center, and that's your central nervous system will send the output to here, control the effector, the muscle, the gland, then you respond. And all this, the nervous system. So the nervous system is big. And what's the sensory system? Sensory system is this part. So their job is turn the physical stimulus into the neuronal response. And the more sensory system you have, well, the more information you can pick up from the outside. And human, we have 5 senses. Well, if you can see ghosts, you have 6. But most of us, I assume you are like me, we have 5 sensory systems. So these 5 senses, their job is to turn the outside physical stimulus into the language your big boss, your brain, is speaking. And that's the neurotransmitter and action potential. So all your brain is well protected inside the cranium. So inside the cranium is actually very dark. There's no light there. So your brain don't see the light. All your brain have is the neuronal signal from your 5 senses. So your brain recreate the outside world for you. And that's why the scientists in the sensory field like to show you this. You think you know the world pretty well? No, it's just an illusion your brain created for you. Sounds creepy, right? And the application is this movie. It was pretty hot 20, 30 years ago when Keanu Reeves was young and handsome. The Matrix. The Matrix is I like the idea. It shows you live in the not real world because they put electrode into the brain and directly stimulates the brain. And you think you live in the real world is created by the Matrix. Yeah. And it's possible, and the reason is all you have is the neuronal signal. So you are able to stimulate the neuron and create the correct pattern and to recreate this. So theoretically it's possible. That's why I really like this movie. It talk about the correct concept. And from chapter 3, we spent so much time talking about the brain. Inside the brain, you have a lot of this. You have 100 billion of this neuron. And all your sensation is created by the neuronal activity. So they generate action potential. And when this neural network becomes complicated enough, and suddenly you create consciousness. And we can have the stimulus from the outside, and eventually they go to activate this. Or we can directly put electrode here and activate this and create the same perception. And that's the movie Matrix. But so far, we don't have this good technology. We don't know how to stimulate so many neurons and create exactly the same pattern. So it still stay in the science novel field. In the sensory field, let's talk about the sensation and perception. Sensation is the physical stimulus processed by your nervous system. Perception is how your brain interprets this result. That's the perception. So these two are different. This happens in your sensory organ. This happens in your brain. And we have other terms like stimuli. These are the physical energy from the outside. And your receptor gonna pick up those physical energy and turn them into the neuronal signal. And if your receptor is not working, well, you don't feel it. And I use this to explain the difference between the perception and your sensation. This is pretty famous in psychology. They call the young lady and old lady picture. Do you see a young lady? A young lady, that's her face. She's looking there. And that's her ear necklace. And the next second you see the old lady. Right? The old lady that's her big nose. And that's her eye, her mouth, the chin looking this way. So why you see differently? And that's because of perception. So eventually it's your brain how to interpret the result. Even though I never change the physical stimulus. The physical stimulus is the same, but your perception is different because your brain interprets it differently. And there's another, also pretty famous in psychology. They call it, I don't know how to call it. 1 second you see 2 cubes standing out, and the next second you see 1 cube standing out. And again, this happens in your brain because your perception change, and that's how your brain interprets these results. And this one, okay, you see a lot of dots, But if you pay attention to this picture for a while, you found, and suddenly your brain captured a dog. There's the big dimension, this the ear, the head turned down, and there's the leg. And once you see the dog, you see the dog. And this will be an application of the Gestalt law we're going to talk about in the visual perception. Your brain likes to see a complete object. Your brain doesn't want to see an individual spot. And every time you see a picture, your brain wants to try to make sense of it. So you will combine them together, become a big picture. And once you see the object, it's an object. And even though they are just random dots here. Okay, so this brings us to our first topic, the most important sensory system in human, the visual system. This is the main system in human, and also in primates. When we talk about the visible light, you can only see the visible light, and it's from 400 to 700 nanometer. And we call it visible light because it's not the light. The light is all this range. All these are the light. From the gamma ray, X-ray, UV, visible light, infrared, radar, all these are electromagnetic waves. And we have this very small range, we're going to visible light because humans receptor, that's the rods and cones on the retina, they only be able to respond to this range of wavelengths. It's actually a very, very tiny range, and we call them visible light. So it's not a physical stimulus, it's your neuronal response. And you find in the sensory chapter, I will keep talking about this concept again and again. It's not the physical stimulus, it's your neuronal response create your perception. And in human, we only have 3 kinds of cones. So the blue cone, the red cone, and the green cone. Our visual system is not the best. It's not the best. It's better than dogs. You may heard that dogs are colorblind. Actually, they see certain range of spectrum. They have the blue cone and the red cone. So it's like their perception is like I give you the blue ink and the red ink, ask you to paint. You miss certain color range, and that's the dogs, the visual. But they never know what they miss because they never see this range, so they will be fine. The bees also have 3 kinds of cones, but one is in the UV range. That's why they are able to see the UV, and it's important for them to find the food from different flowers. All the flowers look the same to us, but they look different to them because they are able to see the UV. And the birds have 4 different kinds of cones, and they actually have a better visual system than humans do. And it makes sense because, well, when they fly, this will be the main system they relies on to find the food. So they have a better visual system. And our visual system is good. It's not perfect. And let's look at a little bit about the eye anatomy. So that's the eye. And outside of the eye, you have 6 muscles. 4 rectus muscles, superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial lateral. So these 4 rectus muscles, their function is pull the eye in these 4 directions. And then you have 2 oblique muscles. Oblique is in this shape, that's oblique. So when they pull, those 2 oblique muscles make your eyeball be able to rotate. And the reason we need to do this is because in your whole big eye, actually we have a big eye, only 1 small dot in the back of the retina is called the fovea. That's the only sharp vision point. So we only have a very small sharp vision point area. And we have to move the fovea to the object if we want to see it clearly. It's like a sniper. We only have a very small sharp area for acute vision. Okay, let's look at the eye structure. So that's the eye structure. And the outside is the cornea and pupil. Actually, there is no pupil. no anatomical structure called pupil. Pupil is the opening created by the iris. Iris is the one give you the eye color, the pigments, and they can constrict, dilate, change the pupil size. So pupil is the opening. That's why I can see your pupil, can see your soul. I can actually see in. Right? And that's the lens. Lens is the main one to change its focus, to change its curvature to focus the light. The cornea can bend the light a little bit, but the main one is the lens. Until 21st century, we have the LASIK surgery. LASIK surgery is they curve the cornea. They take a knife, cut this, not a knife, laser. They cut this, and they cut this, the cornea, to replace the lens. If you are interested, you can watch this surgery. Very good success rate, about 95% success rate, which means if all of us, our whole class, go to take this surgery, one of you will be totally screwed up. And I don't want to be that one, so I'm fine with my classes. I don't want the laser cut this, because you are cutting this, so you can cut too much and cause serious damage. So that one being screwed up is really screwed up. They can be blind. And then all this area is called the vitreous humor. It's like a gel structure. It's mainly water, and their function is to maintain the structure of the eyeball. So in the whole eyeball, the most important area is this. This is like a yellow piece of paper. It's called the retina. And that's the most important area, because that's where they turn the light into the neuronal signal. And this is piece of paper they can detach. It happened to some athletes, like the boxer. They hit the eye too much. They can cause the retina detachment. And once they detach, there's no way the light can perfectly focus on the retina, so they're blind. So some boxers, they're blind because they hit the retina, hit the eye too much, retina detachment. So all the light, they need to perfectly focus on the retina. And when they focus, it's pretty interesting. Actually, it's upside down, because they go through the light from the top will go to the bottom, from the bottom will go to the top. It's upside down. And it's your brain turn it back. Your brain will turn it back. And there's a psychology experiment. They create a lens. They wear the lens and to turn it back. And suddenly those subjects that wear the glasses, they won't be able to see because everything is upside down, even though the image is correct. But amazingly, it takes about 1 hour. And the brain figure it out. Say, oh, I screw up. Okay, turn it back. And suddenly they can see. So the brain have the plasticity. They are able to adjust. It's the brain to turn it back. And ideally, the light need to focus perfectly on the retina. If they focus too close, that's nearsighted. It's also called myopia. And the correction is you use those concave lens. Concave lens will diverge the light out. So if they diverge, and your real lens can focus perfectly on the retina. And if they focus too far, it is far-sighted. And both of them, they could not see clearly. And the treatment is they use the convex lens. Convex lens can focus the light first, and use your real lens to focus the light again, so they can focus perfectly on the retina. And it's a convex lens, so it's a magnifier. So people with far-sighted, you watch them, you found, their eyes look bigger, and because the glasses they wear is a convex lens. Other disease, okay, presbyopia, it happens in the middle age. Gradually, okay, this lens need to change the curvature and to make the light perfectly focus on the retina. And you pull this like a rubber band, right? You pull it for 40, 50 years. Gradually, they become loose. And when they become loose, they won't be able to make the lens curve enough to focus the object closer to you. And there's some old people that need reading glasses, because they have difficulty to see object closer to you because they could not make the lens curve enough. So they need reading glasses, or they need to put the object pretty far away. Cataract is this lens turn cloudy. And we have the surgery. They can replace the lens part. The lens is like MMM, so they can take I watched the surgery. They can take the chocolate part out and replace it. That's a cataract surgery. Okay, let's take a short break.